Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Over Food's Sake. This week's a little bit different because Lucy and I recorded this episode live at FoodX. We are going to talk about how it's so important to have the right systems and the right soft skills to be able to drive innovation in a food business. It's in front of a live audience. We do have a bit of audience interaction. The audio is pretty good, but it is slightly different to usual, so that's why I wanted to mention it. Hope you enjoy the episode.
We all want to be able to launch products swiftly, safely, to the best quality. And a good stage gate process should allow you to do that. And it should be the framework that supports you in doing that.
Welcome to the O for Food's Sake podcast, where we unwrap the joys and struggles of working in the food industry so you can thrive in what you do best while sustaining a rewarding and fulfilling career or business. We are your hosts, Lucy Wager, food industry consultant,
and Amy Wilkinson, food industry coach. We've worked in the food industry for the last 20 years and we're here to share with you the benefit of our hindsight. Our podcast is for you to find new ways to cope with the daily struggles, but mostly to inspire you to work on what's not working to ultimately improve your career or business long term.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. It's lovely to see some familiar, friendly faces that we know. So thank you very much for coming. So yes, I'm Lucy Wager, for those of you that don't know me, and this is my co-host, Amy Wilkinson. And together we run and host the O for Food's Sake podcast, where we talk about the highs and lows, the joys and challenges of working in the food industry together. So today we are going to be talking about one of our favourite subjects, which is stage gate process and the soft skills that go with that, and how together the right systems and using our soft skills in the right way can really help us drive innovation in food manufacturing.
Because basically Lucy is a systems geek in a good way, and I am very much a people, soft skills. How do we, at the heart of the food industry are people, and how do we get people to do what they should be doing? So, yeah. So we're going to start by talking a little bit about stage gate process and why it's so important and what goes wrong with it. Now, this is definitely Lucy's passion. So tell everybody about what stage gate's all about and why it's so important in driving innovation. Because I think a lot of the time people think it holds back innovation, but it really doesn't.
Yeah. I'll start by talking about why stage gate is my passion, because that's quite a strange passion to have, really, isn't it? I probably wouldn't describe it that way myself, but I think what it is I started working in the food industry in a very normal way, in terms of I came in as a concept technologist at Backabor, working in a quite a structured team, and stage gate had really only just kind of come into the food industry at that point, which I didn't really realise until fairly recently.
Yeah, it was like the late 90s.
Yeah. So we were both working in an environment where stage gate was very much part of the process. Now, having said that, we weren't taught the stage gate process.
No. Did we know that it was a stage gate process?
No,
really.
No, we just kind of did it. And that was a big thing for us, that actually people weren't then and still aren't necessarily trained very well in stage gate or the processes that are used in businesses. So we just sort of, you muddle through and kind of learn, and this is the process that we go through. And then I worked in retail, and that was all very structured with stage gate process, and things like came in and there were fancy leaflets that were describing the process and everything. And then what I did was I then started Methodology, which is a food startup business. And basically, that all went out the window because it was me doing everything. But what I then sort of realized was that actually I was still following that process because it was ingrained in who I am and what I'd done, because I'd always worked in product development. And so then when I started consulting, I then put it all together and realized, how valuable stage gate process is, and, how quickly things can fall apart when it's not done very well, or when a business is trying to do it, but there's resistance. And, because at the same time, Amy and I were doing podcasts, it then became just such an interesting topic that the people play such a huge role in how a system works and how productive a system is. And we just love talking about actually, how do you make it work well in a business? And we go into lots of businesses and see the same thing.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. And I know I know some people at the audience have, I was going to say been around the block. That sounds awful, doesn't it? But it's true. But, we've worked in lots and lots of different businesses, and actually there's so much that comes back to, have you got the right systems in place? And by systems, we don't necessarily mean, like, there are amazing software systems out there that do whizzy things and stuff like that. Some places it's just a bunch of spreadsheets, but actually having a documented and communicated to everybody within that business some sort of system is so important. And when it doesn't happen well, or when it doesn't get reviewed very often, that's when we start to see things breaking down. So I'm really conscious, Lucy, we haven't really talked about what stage gate is in terms of what it actually does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's a process that you can start from the very beginning of a concept, or the ideas from coming up with concepts, all the way through to after launch and the learnings that go with that to feed into the next. And the key thing about stage gate and the use of those words, or words that mean the same thing, is that you are doing tasks during the stage and then you are making a decision at the gate. So are we going to go ahead? Are we going to pause and come back later? Or are we going to stop? And the really important thing is to understand what those gates are in your business and why they're there. Because one of the problems is that, and this is one of the issues, that people feel like it's slowing things down. And why do we need to have that meeting? Why do we have to do that? That's why you need to be really clear about why you're signing it off. Is it because you're going to start to invest more business, more money into the business after that decision is made? Are you going to invest more resource into it once you do that? Are you going to ask suppliers to start spending money if you go past that stage? And I think when you start framing things in that language, you then start to get people's buy-in more, because they suddenly realize the value of the stage gate process and why those decisions are important, and therefore why it's important for them to be engaged and in the room when you're having those conversations. And what I always say, the product developers tend to be the people that are left kind of holding the baby when it comes to the project management side of developing products. And the reason for that is because we're the ones, we're there for the whole journey. We don't dip in and dip out. We are there most, ideating right at the beginning, all the way through to, I still look at products on the shelf in M&S that I developed 15 years ago. I still feel invested in those products.
So that they're still your babies. They may have been reformulated 3 or 4 times, but like keep it there at the start, right?
Exactly. And it's being on that journey from start to finish that is the privilege of product development. And that means that we are the gatekeepers in a way, and we have to bring everybody on that journey with us. But
I think that's part of the problem, right? Because then people assume that it's the responsibility of product development. And I think that's something that we really wanted to talk about today, is how actually those, and why it's so important, therefore, in product development and all the other support functions, to have those skills to bring everybody else on board. I mean, you've just done some training for a business. We've done like their e-learning on stage gate. And one of the big things about it when we were going to record it was to say, do not call this a product development process. It is a business process, because any change that happens throughout a business that affects the product or the process has to go through stage gate. But there's so much more involved. And I think we've both worked in businesses and worked with businesses as well, where loads of money's been spent on a system and software and this, that, and the other, and it just hasn't landed properly because it's not been communicated properly. That's just the thing that the MPD people use, and it's just another thing that we've got to sign off, when actually the reality is it makes everybody's life easier, but you've got to have the interpersonal and communication skills to be able to get people on board right from the start. So we've done a lot of work, haven't we, where we've done workshops right at the beginning of mapping out the process to really get everybody involved, get operations, get technical, get finance, everybody to understand everything that goes into the process. Because I think a lot of time, until you do that work, people have no idea how complicated it is to launch a product.
Yeah.
And, I have this little bugbear of mine, don't I, that they think that people in NPD are just fanning around in the kitchen. And that is not what is happening. And actually, the reality is, this is about driving innovation. And by having some sort of system in place that helps to make all those decisions and helps drive things through faster, people can actually do the job that they're paid for, which is to come up with innovative products, which is the lifeblood of the business. But when you don't have the right systems and you don't have the right soft skills in place, what happens is basically chaos, isn't it? And you spend your whole time just chasing up artwork and stuff like that.
So, and I find that there's also quite a lot of repetition. So if the process isn't working very well, you find that there's lots of different spreadsheets that are saying the same thing in a different way, trying to cover all the different people that need to input into the process that isn't working very well.
I see so much nodding there on in the audience.
And it can be really difficult when you've got those spreadsheets in place. It can be quite scary to think about removing them, but it can be a really useful exercise to look at all the information that you are needing to collect and when it's all being collected, and really think about, why are we doing this? What is the reason we need this information? At what point do we need this information, and why do we need it? And can it be consolidated? And can we put it into a more streamlined system? And I think as an industry, we've talked about this before, we're not very good at using technology. I think we must be the most old-fashioned industry in the world. We're still using Excel from 1995. And I don't know what that resistance is in this industry. And I think at a factory level, I don't think that's I don't think that's the case, because I don't work in that arena very much. But certainly from a product development and the project management and process systems perspective, we are quite backwards. And that makes it really difficult for us, because we are generally product developers trying to manage a project, well, not just one, multiple projects, under-resourced with, rubbish technology. And we're not even very technical people necessarily when it comes. It's like a perfect storm.
Sounds like we're having a right moan fest here.
But I think it's good to it's really good to raise the issue, because it shows the sort of unnecessary pressure that product development teams and process management teams are actually under in the food industry. Because I don't think it's until you start talking about it and really engaging with the rest of the business that something can be done about it. Because I think you're right. When we've done sessions where we've done like big workshops, and we've involved everybody in the business that's involved, right? From warehouse to manufacturing to product development, and everybody. And we've mapped out the process. People have been shocked, haven't they?
Yeah.
And have said in the room, spontaneously, "Oh God, I didn't realize you had to do that." And it suddenly all starts to make sense, because it can be a long process. Talking generally sort of 32 weeks or something. And there's a lot that goes into that. And there's lots of different departments, and they're all doing different tasks, and everybody's interested in what they're doing. They don't know what anyone else is doing.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick breather here to hear from our fantastic sponsors. They help keep the podcast going, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. As we all know, the food industry never stands still, and it's not getting any easier. More pressure, tighter deadlines, and endless spreadsheets. Sound familiar? Point 74 is the perfect solution for cutting through today's product development challenges, enabling teams to create, cost, comply, and collaborate with ease. Used by 1 in 5 of the UK's top food manufacturers and 2 of the top 5 retailers, it's the software behind the label of your favourite food products, delivering improved quality, margins and processes, all in one seamless system.
Ensuring food safety and quality is crucial. That's why businesses trust Microsearch Laboratories, part of the IFP Labs Group. UCAS accredited Microsearch offers microbiological, nutritional and allergen testing for food, drink and water, delivering fast results and expert support. With over 30 years of experience, trusted by leading manufacturers and retailers, and a commitment to sustainability, Microsearch is your partner in product safety. Visit micro-search.co.uk to learn more.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us. Let's dive right back in.
And I think one of the other things is that by having that system and having the stage gate and stuff, it gives people a better understanding of the knock-on effects of stuff. Because I know there's people in the audience that are, working in brand, working in artwork, working in things like that. Like I was on a call with a design team the other day and talking about trying to understand their frustrations, because obviously we work very much with MPD teams, but the frustrations were the same things. It was like people don't do what they say they're going to do. They don't do it on time. Dates aren't adhered to, all of that sort of stuff. And actually, by having systems that will flag to people, you've got to get the impact of not doing X by Y date has this end impact on the launch date. Because I think what can often happen is, because we care so much and we really want to get stuff across the line, we end up like squeezing a bit here and squeezing a bit there. And actually, if it doesn't impact the launch date, people don't really care, but you've got a load of frazzled people in the middle. And that's what happens. And that's why I think it's so important that people do something to change this, because what it means is we're going to be squeezing those people in the middle. All their energy goes into chasing things up and they're not actually innovating products. So what are we saying we want to change in the world, Lucy?
Everything that is different for this process. Well, I think the first thing is it's about, we were talking earlier and I said, if you've got a stage gate process in your business and it hasn't been looked at for a few years, then it probably most definitely needs to be reviewed. Because one of the things that I do is I do a masterclass for the future food movement talking about healthy, sustainable diets. And one of the things that I talk about in there is if you really want to make an impact on health and sustainability, then you need to make it part of your stage gate process. So that's one of the reasons why, as product developers, we're under so much pressures. A lot has changed in the last, 2 years, but let alone 10 years. And so if you're working on an outdated stage gate system in your business, then you're not taking into account some of the things that you need to be considering. And so that immediately is adding more time in that probably isn't factored in. So I think that's one of the things. I think the processes in a business need to be reviewed more often. And that brings me on to my other point, which is the framework needs to be seen as a flexible framework that is used to support you all as people in the business. It shouldn't be something that everybody hates and dreads and is, stopping you hitting launch and slowing down launch, because we all want to be able to launch products swiftly, safely, to the best quality. And a good stage gate process should allow you to do that. And it should be the framework that supports you in doing that and isn't a hindrance.
Yeah. And actually having something that people feel like they can see the benefit of. Because I know that's one of the things that people talk to me about a lot is, we've put in this system, but it's not flexible enough and it doesn't do this, that and the other. Well, even if you're working with a software manufacturer that does that, go and have that conversation with them. Can we change this, whatever part of it, because it needs to work for the business. I think the thing to me is about actually giving people the support and training to do the soft skills bit. So actually, I think a lot of the time we just throw people into jobs, don't we? And you kind of have to learn on the job how to do all of the influencing that we have to do in those roles where it is you're project managing something. Actually investing time and money in people skills to allow people, because I think a lot of the time we are expecting quite junior members of the team to be having conversations with, frankly, dinosaurs who are sitting there saying, we've tried it before, we tried it in 1986 and it didn't work, so it definitely won't work again. But actually, we can't just expect everybody to have the skills on knowing how to push back on that sort of thing. So actually investing time and money and finding mentors for people, but just finding ways to help them. And I'm hesitating because I'm thinking it's not just junior team members, whatever level you're at, sometimes you just need a bit of help with that stuff. If you're banging your head against a brick wall all the time, like, how do I reframe this? How do I get people on board? And I think, there's definitely something in that, because I think that whole, we've tried it before and it doesn't work, or you're the sales prevention team, all of those sorts of things, they're real life things that happen. and knowing how to respond to those things is not a skill that just comes like that. So actually the training and support for people with soft skills,
Yeah.
like you said,
And I also think, embracing new technologies and giving new things a try and not being afraid to suggest new things because, I go into big businesses that are still so reliant on spreadsheets. I just think, your lives could be so much easier. So not being afraid to challenge that. And the flip side of that is that a really great system is only as good as the people that are using it. So, you have to be really careful about that as well and have that watch out. But I really feel like as an industry, we need to get smarter at using good technologies that are suitable for the size of business that we're working in, get that support, engage with the wider teams and bring them on the journey with you because, it can feel like they're resistant. But actually, when you start to talk to them and they engage with you, my experience is that it works well eventually because I think product development teams are under unprecedented pressure from all angles, and we need to find ways of making it easier to drive innovation because otherwise I think we're not going to be in a position to drive the innovation that is needed.
So in summary, sort your systems out, but regularly review your systems to make sure that they're fit for your business as it stands today, but also give people the support that they need because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the system that you've got in, if you're not supporting your people and making it safe for people to push back and have difficult conversations about, all the stuff that goes on in a day-to-day world in food manufacturing, then, that's where things fall down. So,
Yeah.
So I hope you found that useful. It's a bit weird doing it with other people, not gonna lie, but it's lovely to see all your faces. But we would love to get any questions from anybody. Any questions? Brilliant. Oh, Debbie straight in there.
Really good tool, and I completely agree that every food business needs a gate system. And it's interesting because it's always, all the companies I've worked in, it's always been up to for it them to put it in. And I think we need to flip things on its head. And if you're MD of any food factory, it's a given, look up a SAP system. You'd have an accountancy system, or you'd have a food processing system. Guess what? It's not a given you'd have on a food product development system.
Yeah.
So I think we need to start educating managing directors at the top that you have to do that because you're going to be much more effective and efficient. And there aren't really any, you can buy a SAP system and adjust it off the shelf, or buy a product development system off the shelf and adjust it. Every single business is in. I've worked with Monday, Kipper, to create it.
Yeah.
So I think either there's got to be something with AI or the product developers have to rebel and get AI to make the system. It's got to move on because it's just so unfair for the
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be some movements in AI and stuff. I mean, there are systems out there. Our podcast is currently sponsored by Point74, who have a software system. But again, theirs is quite bespoke, so it is. And I think there's some other systems out there that are going to launch. There's somebody in the audience that is going to be launching some sort of system. So everybody go and thin chair in a minute. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that in the same way we're talking about when you're implementing, you need to get the buy-in from everybody, actually for leaders in businesses. And I mean, Debbie, this is a big bugbear of mine because I feel like in MPD, there's often not somebody at that director level, who usually report into commercial or technical, so they don't understand, the day-to-day. So actually influencing at that level to so that people understand what the impact is a really good shout.
Yeah.
So do we have any more questions? Oh, go on.
So on the complete flip side, do you worry about the future with AI completely taking over and controlling this, and how would it affect?
Well, no, basically. I love technologies. I understand the fear, but I think it's a really exciting opportunity to actually take load off us for us to be able to do what we can do, which AI can't do as well as us, which is that sort of human creativity. So I think it should be a huge support for product development.
I think it could really, there's so much that it could cut out and actually reuse in the same way we use it in our own businesses to do all the stuff that just takes up time, but doesn't really give you much reward, so that we can actually do the stuff that we enjoy and the skills that we've learned and honed over the years. I don't think we should be scared, but I think we need to stay on the front foot with it, because the people that do use AI are the people that are going to get ahead. So I don't think we can bury our heads in the sand and say,
Yeah, we can't fear it. We've got to embrace it, haven't we? Whatever that means.
one more question.
I was just interested, you talking about 60 to soft skill, and you made the point that often you join a business, you're kind of thrown in and you don't get trained on the systems, you just kind of pick it up and teach yourself. How do you think businesses would be better at training their public development teams or all of their personnel in those soft skills that you need to make those skills sort of work so much better?
Well, get fearless foodies in to run some workshops. And obviously that is part of what I do in my business, is go in and help teams to develop those soft skills. But I don't think it is just about, hard and fast training and having people coming in. I think it is about being more aware of not just chucking people in at the deep end. And one of the big kind of fears I have for younger people coming into the industry now is because of hybrid working, you're not learning by osmosis as much. So, if there's lots of people, and it's not even about, because a lot of the time product development are in the office because you have to be in the kitchen and stuff. It's, commercial teams are all working from home. You're not overhearing those conversations as much. So actually thinking about the younger people that are coming into the business and thinking, actually, we do need to teach them these things. I hear all the time, in fact, next week, a couple of weeks' time, we're recording an episode about Gen Z and like how to support Gen Z, because I think this is a big thing, is like, I don't want to pick up a phone, well, I don't even really like picking up the phone. I'm Gen X. So, but recognizing that the skill sets are different and we can't expect people to just be able to pick it up in the same way, because they haven't been educated to be able to just get on with it in breath like we have been. So I think accepting that there needs to be a bit more hand-holding and teaching how to, have conversations and stuff like that, and obviously get me in to do it if you want to spend some money. Any more questions? No? Thank you for coming, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it, rate and review us. It really helps us reach more food industry pros like you.
For more resources, head over to our website, overfoodsake.co.uk, and join our mailing list to stay in touch.
And if you'd like to connect with us, come say hello on LinkedIn. We're both there, Lucy Wager and Amy Wilkinson.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.